Nobody saw this coming, and now fans can't stop talking. What started as a quiet family moment has exploded into one of the most talked about reality TV scandals of the year. Rasheeda's own mother, the woman who's always been her loudest defender and fiercest protector, is suddenly being spotted laughing, bonding, and getting way too comfortable with none other than Jasmine Bleu. Yes, that Jasmine. And now the internet is asking the unthinkable question, did Rasheeda even matter at all? Fans are shocked, emotions ran high, and behind closed doors, whispers turned into accusations that shook the family to its core. Sources say the tension didn't build slowly, it detonated. One minute, Rasheeda thought she had her mother firmly in her corner. The next, she was watching that loyalty shift in real time, right before her eyes. Smiles exchange, private conversations, a bond forming that no one asked for, and no one can explain. What does Jasmine Bleu have that Rasheeda doesn't? That's the question setting social media on fire. Some fans say it feels like betrayal. Others are calling it a power move. And a few are wondering if Rasheeda's mom is sending a message that cuts deeper than words ever could. Because when a mother chooses connection over blood, the fallout is never quiet. Behind the scenes, voices were raised, tears were shed, and one explosive confrontation reportedly left the family divided. Was this bond innocent, or was it intentional? Was Rasheeda pushed aside, or replaced? Stay right here, because once you hear what really went down, you might never look at this family the same way again. The tension didn't start with a scream or a slammed door. It started with a smile. A quiet one, the kind that lingers just a second too long. Rasheeda didn't think much of it at first when she noticed her mom laughing with Jasmine Bleu backstage at a small industry mixer. It looked harmless, polite, almost forced, but something in her chest tightened anyway, like a warning she didn't want to hear. Fans would later say that was the exact moment everything shifted, even if no one realized it yet. At first, the conversations were casual, surface level. Jasmine complimented Rasheeda's mom on her strength, her wisdom, the way she held the family together. Those words landed deep, deeper than Rasheeda knew, because for years, Rasheeda's mom had felt invisible, always standing behind her daughter, always supporting, never centered. And now here was Jasmine, listening, nodding, asking questions no one else bothered to ask. Emotions ran high, even if they stayed hidden behind soft laughter and knowing glances. Days later, Rasheeda started hearing whispers. A cousin mentioned seeing her mom and Jasmine having coffee together. A friend joked that they looked real close. Rasheeda laughed it off, but the laugh sounded hollow even to her own ears. She told herself she was being dramatic. Fans would later say this was denial in real time. Because while Rasheeda was brushing it off, that bond was growing stronger, deeper, and far more personal than anyone expected. Behind closed doors, Jasmine was opening up. She spoke about feeling misunderstood, painted as the villain, always judged before being heard. Rasheeda's mom listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't defend anyone else. She just listened, and that alone changed everything. Jasmine shared stories that made her cry, stories that made Rasheeda's mom reach across the table and hold her hand. Sources say that moment sealed it, not because it was dramatic, but because it was quiet and real. When Rasheeda finally confronted her mom, it wasn't explosive. Not yet. She asked casually, "Why are you talking to her so much?" Her mom's response was calm, almost too calm. "She's not what people say," she replied. Those words hit Rasheeda harder than any insult ever could. Fans are shocked because that sentence felt like a rejection, like a subtle dismissal of everything Rasheeda had gone through. Rasheeda tried to explain her side. She talked about history, about pain, about lines that shouldn't be crossed. But her mom didn't budge. Instead, she said something that would later replay in Rasheeda's mind over and over again. "I'm allowed to have my own perspective." The room went quiet. The family was left divided in that moment, even if no one said it out loud. Things escalated fast after that. Jasmine began showing up at events she never attended before. Always near Rasheeda's mom, always sharing inside jokes. Fans noticed. Social media exploded. Comments poured in asking why Rasheeda's mom looked more relaxed around Jasmine than she ever did around her own daughter. Some fans accused Jasmine of manipulation. Others accused Rasheeda of entitlement. The narrative split in half, and there was no turning back. One night, during a family dinner meant to clear the air, emotions finally boiled over. Rasheeda couldn't hold it in anymore. Her voice shook as she asked the question everyone was thinking. "Do I even matter to you right now?" The silence that followed was deafening. Her mom didn't answer right away. That pause spoke louder than any words. Jasmine shifted in her seat, clearly uncomfortable but not backing down. When Rasheeda's mom finally spoke, her words were measured but devastating. She said she loved her daughter, but she was tired of being told who she could and couldn't connect with. She said Jasmine saw her as a person, not just Rasheeda's mom. Fans are shocked because that confession changed the entire dynamic. It wasn't about betrayal anymore. It was about identity, validation, and years of unspoken resentment rising to the surface. Rasheeda stood up from the table, tears streaming, accusing Jasmine of overstepping and her mom of choosing a stranger over her own blood. Jasmine fired back, saying she never asked to be put in the middle and that maybe the real issue had been there long before she arrived. Voices rose. Accusations flew. The family was left divided, with some siding with Rasheeda and others quietly admitting they understood her mom's point. That night ended without resolution. No hugs, no apologies, just unanswered questions hanging heavy in the air. Rasheeda left feeling smaller than she ever had, while her mom sat in silence, staring at her hands, realizing there was no easy way back. Fans are shocked not just by the bond itself but by what it exposed. Because if a mother can find understanding in someone the world labeled an enemy, what does that say about the relationships she already had? And as the dust settled, one thing became painfully clear. This wasn't a temporary rift. It was the beginning of something much bigger, messier, and far more emotional than anyone was prepared for, and the next chapter was already unfolding in ways no one could stop. The morning after that dinner, the silence was louder than the fight itself. Rasheeda didn't call her mom. Her mom didn't call her either. Both waited, both hurt, both convinced the other should make the first move. Fans are shocked because this Cold War didn't stay private for long. Jasmine posted a vague message online about being misunderstood but finally feeling seen, and everyone knew exactly who it was about. Emotions ran high as comments flooded in, tagging Rasheeda, tagging her mom, demanding explanations no one was ready to give. Behind the scenes, Rasheeda was unraveling. She told close friends she felt replaced, not just disrespected. She kept replaying that dinner in her head, especially the pause before her mom answered. That pause haunted her. To Rasheeda, it felt like proof that something had shifted permanently. Friends tried to reassure her, saying it was just a phase, just confusion. But Rasheeda knew better. A mother doesn't hesitate unless something is already broken. Meanwhile, Jasmine leaned further into the bond. She started visiting Rasheeda's mom at home. Cooking together, praying together, talking late into the night. Sources say Rasheeda's mom opened up about sacrifices she never voiced, about dreams she put on hold, about feeling like her entire identity had been wrapped around supporting someone else's life. Jasmine listened and validated every word. She said, "You deserve to be seen too." That sentence alone deepened the divide. When Rasheeda found out Jasmine had been in her childhood home, that was the breaking point. She confronted her mom over the phone, her voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "You let her into our space?" she demanded. Her mom didn't deny it. Instead, she said something that cut deep. "This is my space too." Fans are shocked because that one line shattered the illusion that everything could go back to how it was. The argument escalated quickly. Rasheeda accused her mom of rewriting history, of acting like she had been oppressed when Rasheeda believed she had done nothing but love her. Her mom snapped back, saying love doesn't mean losing yourself. The family was left divided as relatives took sides, some saying Rasheeda was being selfish, others saying a mother should never make her child feel secondary. Jasmine tried to stay quiet publicly, but privately she wasn't backing away. She told Rasheeda's mom that stepping back now would only prove everyone right about her being fake. That advice mattered. Rasheeda's mom didn't want to feel weak or controlled anymore, so she stood firm. She continued the friendship, even as backlash grew louder. Fans began noticing subtle changes. Rasheeda's mom stopped liking Rasheeda's posts. She started sharing quotes about boundaries and self-worth. Fans are shocked at how public it all became without anyone directly saying names. It felt intentional. It felt like a message. Rasheeda saw every post and felt everyone like a slap. Then came the reunion taping. The room was tense before anyone even spoke. Rasheeda avoided eye contact with both her mom and Jasmine. Producers sensed the drama and pushed for confrontation. When the topic finally came up, emotions ran high instantly. Rasheeda broke down, saying she felt abandoned by the one person she thought would always choose her. Her mom listened, but instead of apologizing, she defended herself. She said she loved Rasheeda deeply, but she refused to be guilted into isolation. She said Jasmine didn't steal her, she found her. Fans are shocked because that wording sounded less like reassurance and more like a declaration. Jasmine finally spoke up, saying she never meant to come between a mother and daughter, but she wouldn't apologize for forming a genuine connection. Rasheeda snapped back, accusing her of knowing exactly what she was doing. The argument turned heated. Voices overlapped. Accusations flew. Producers struggled to keep control. The family was left divided on that stage. Some audience members clapped for Rasheeda's vulnerability. Others nodded when her mom talked about independence. Social media exploded that same night. Hashtags trended. Fans argued endlessly about whether Rasheeda was entitled or wounded, whether her mom was brave or cruel. After the reunion, Rasheeda's mom and Jasmine were seen leaving together. That image alone sent fans into a frenzy. It felt symbolic, like a final choice being made. Rasheeda left alone, tears in her eyes, refusing interviews. Fans are shocked because it looked like a clean break, not just a disagreement. Days later, Rasheeda posted a cryptic message about grieving people who are still alive. Everyone knew who it was about. Her mom didn't respond. Instead, Jasmine posted another quote about choosing peace over obligation. Emotions ran high as fans begged for reconciliation, while others fueled the fire. Behind closed doors, Rasheeda's mom did feel guilt. Sources say she cried alone at night, wondering if she'd gone too far. But every time she considered reaching out, she remembered years of feeling unheard. Jasmine reminded her of that pain, intentionally or not. The bond had become emotional armor, and letting it go felt impossible. Rasheeda, on the other hand, started questioning everything. She wondered if she had overlooked her mom's needs all along. That realization hurt almost as much as the perceived betrayal. The family was left divided not just externally, but internally, with love tangled up in resentment and regret. As weeks passed, the distance only grew. What began as a simple connection had turned into a full-blown fracture. Fans are shocked because no one expected this storyline to expose such deep emotional wounds. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get more complicated, a new revelation was quietly waiting to surface, one that would force everyone to rethink who was right, who was wrong, and whether this bond had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The revelation didn't come from Jasmine or Rasheeda. It came from someone the family never expected to speak up. An aunt, long quiet and usually neutral, finally broke her silence during a private gathering that was supposed to be about healing. Instead, it cracked everything open. She admitted that Rasheeda's mom had confided in her years ago about feeling emotionally sidelined, not just by Rasheeda, but by the entire family. Fans are shocked because this wasn't a new wound. It was an old one that had never been treated. Rasheeda wasn't in the room when this was said, but the words reached her anyway. When she heard, her first reaction was anger. She felt exposed, like her private family struggles were being turned into justification. She called her mom immediately, demanding to know why she never said any of this before. Her mom's voice was tired when she answered. She said she didn't think anyone wanted to hear it. That answer hit Rasheeda harder than any accusation Jasmine had ever made. Emotions ran high as Rasheeda began questioning her own memories. She remembered moments when she assumed her mom was fine, moments when she took support for granted. Guilt crept in, slow and heavy. But that guilt didn't erase the pain of seeing her mom bond so deeply with Jasmine. It just complicated it. The family was left divided not because they didn't love each other, but because love had been expressed unevenly for too long. Jasmine, meanwhile, felt the shift. She sensed Rasheeda's walls lowering slightly, but she also felt her own position becoming more fragile. People around her started warning her that she was too involved, that this wasn't her place. Jasmine pushed back, saying she was tired of being blamed for connections she didn't force. Still, doubt crept in. Late at night, she wondered if she had become a symbol instead of a person. Another confrontation followed, this time without cameras, without producers, without an audience. Rasheeda met her mom alone. No Jasmine, no relatives, just the two of them. The silence between them was thick. Rasheeda finally said she felt like she was mourning her mom while she was still alive. Her mom broke down. She cried openly, admitting she never wanted to hurt her daughter, but she also couldn't keep disappearing inside herself. Fans are shocked because this was the first time both sides were fully vulnerable at the same time. There were apologies, but they were incomplete. There were hugs, but they were hesitant. Healing didn't happen in that room, but something softened. Still, when Rasheeda asked about Jasmine, the tension returned immediately. Her mom said she wasn't ready to let that bond go. That answer reopened the wound. Rasheeda left that meeting conflicted. She felt closer to understanding her mom, yet farther from forgiving her. She told friends that it felt like choosing between empathy and self-respect. Emotions ran high as fans debated whether reconciliation was even possible if Jasmine remained in the picture. Jasmine noticed the shift too. Rasheeda's mom started pulling back slightly, setting small boundaries. Fewer visits, shorter calls. Jasmine felt it and panicked. She worried that if she stepped back, everything she had built would disappear. She confronted Rasheeda's mom, asking if she was being pushed out. Her mom insisted that wasn't the case, but the reassurance felt thin. The family was left divided again when Jasmine showed up unexpectedly at another gathering. Rasheeda wasn't prepared. The tension was immediate. No one raised their voice, but every look carried weight. Jasmine tried to be polite, but Rasheeda couldn't hide her discomfort. Fans are shocked because this silent standoff spoke louder than any argument. After that night, Jasmine made a decision. She publicly announced she was taking space for her own mental health. The post was calm, but loaded. Some fans praised her maturity. Others accused her of damage control. Rasheeda's mom didn't comment, which only fueled speculation. Emotions ran high as everyone tried to read between the lines. Privately, Rasheeda's mom struggled. Without Jasmine's constant presence, she felt a mix of relief and loss. She realized she had leaned on that bond more than she admitted. At the same time, she started reaching out to Rasheeda more consistently. Small texts, check-ins, nothing heavy, just presence. Rasheeda noticed and appreciated it, even if trust wasn't fully restored. Weeks passed, the intensity faded, but the questions remained. Fans are shocked because the story didn't end with a dramatic reconciliation or a definitive break. It lingered, unresolved, real. The family was left divided not by hatred but by unfinished conversations. And as things finally seemed to settle into an uneasy calm, one final moment loomed on the horizon. An upcoming event where all three would be in the same room again. No producers, no edits, just reality, and everyone knew that whatever happened there would decide whether this bond was a temporary fracture or a permanent scar. The event arrived quietly but carried the weight of everything left unsaid. It was meant to be a celebration, a neutral space where family and friends gathered under the excuse of joy, but everyone felt the tension the moment Rasheeda walked in. Her posture was composed, but her eyes scanned the room instinctively. When she saw her mom across the space, her breath caught. When she realized Jasmine was already there, standing just a few feet away, emotions ran high instantly. No one rushed into confrontation. That was the strangest part. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Rasheeda's mom looked torn, caught between instinct and intention. Jasmine hesitated, unsure whether to approach or retreat. Fans are shocked because what followed wasn't explosive. It was slow, deliberate, and far more painful. Rasheeda's mom was the first to move. She walked toward her daughter, ignoring the looks around her. She reached out, gently touching Rasheeda's arm, asking if they could talk. Rasheeda nodded, though her jaw tightened. They stepped aside, but Jasmine stayed in sight, watching, waiting, bracing herself for whatever decision was about to be made. Rasheeda didn't waste time. She said she was tired. Tired of feeling like she had to compete for her own mother's attention. Tired of feeling like understanding came at the cost of her own pain. Her mom listened, really listened this time. She didn't defend herself. She didn't bring up Jasmine. She just listened. Fans are shocked because this was the first time in months that Rasheeda felt fully heard. When her mom finally spoke, her voice trembled. She admitted she had let her hurt turn into distance. She said she never meant for Rasheeda to feel replaced, but she could see now how her actions looked. She apologized, not vaguely, not defensively, but clearly. The family was left divided, watching from afar, unsure if this was reconciliation or just another fragile truce. Rasheeda cried, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly. Years of pressure slipped out in that moment. She admitted she hadn't always noticed her mom's sacrifices, that she assumed strength meant silence. That confession shifted something. They hugged, slowly, cautiously, like two people relearning each other. But the story didn't end there. Because Jasmine was still there. And pretending she didn't exist wasn't an option anymore. Rasheeda's mom walked over to Jasmine next. The room felt like it stopped breathing. Jasmine looked nervous, her confidence gone. Rasheeda stayed close enough to hear every word. Her mom thanked Jasmine for being there for her during a lonely time. That acknowledgement mattered. Then she set a boundary. She said she needed space to rebuild with her daughter. Not because Jasmine was wrong, but because priorities had to be realigned. Fans are shocked because Jasmine didn't argue. She didn't cry. She nodded. She said she understood, even if it hurt. She admitted she may have leaned too hard into a bond that wasn't meant to carry so much weight. That honesty surprised everyone. Rasheeda finally spoke to Jasmine directly. The tension was sharp but controlled. She said she didn't hate her. She said her anger came from fear, not jealousy. Jasmine responded by saying she never wanted to take anything that belonged to Rasheeda. Emotions ran high, but there was no shouting. Just raw truth. The family was left divided in how they interpreted that moment. Some saw closure. Others saw a temporary ceasefire. Social media exploded again once word leaked out. Fans argued over whether Jasmine was genuinely stepping back or simply regrouping. Whether Rasheeda's mom had finally chosen her daughter or was just trying to avoid more backlash. In the weeks that followed, things changed subtly. Rasheeda and her mom spent more time together. Not performative, not public. Private dinners, long talks, rebuilding trust brick by brick. Jasmine kept her distance, focusing on her own life, though her absence was felt. Rasheeda's mom struggled with guilt, missing the ease she once felt with Jasmine while trying to show up fully for her daughter. Rasheeda sensed that conflict but chose patience. Fans are shocked because growth replaced chaos, even if it was uncomfortable. Still, not everything healed. There were moments of tension, moments of insecurity. Trust doesn't snap back into place. It stretches, tests, sometimes strains. The family was left divided internally, balancing forgiveness with memory. And yet, something undeniable had shifted. The question was no longer did Rasheeda even matter. It became how everyone failed to show it when it mattered most. That realization lingered, heavy but necessary. As time went on, fans watched closely, waiting for signs of relapse or redemption. Nothing dramatic happened, and that, strangely, became the most dramatic outcome of all. Because sometimes the real fallout isn't in the explosions, but in the quiet work of putting pieces back together, knowing some cracks will always remain. Even with the calm on the surface, the emotional aftershocks kept rippling. Rasheeda woke up some mornings feeling hopeful, other mornings feeling triggered by the smallest things. A missed call, a delayed reply, a photo online that showed her mom smiling a little too freely. Emotions ran high in private, even when everything looked stable in public. She realized healing wasn't a straight line, and that scared her more than the original conflict ever did. Her mom felt it too. She tried to overcorrect at times, calling too much, asking too many questions, hovering in ways she never had before. Rasheeda appreciated the effort but sometimes felt overwhelmed. Old patterns threatened to flip into new extremes. The family was left divided internally, trying to find balance without reopening old wounds. Jasmine, on the outside now, struggled in a different way. She felt erased, not by malice but by necessity. She told close friends she felt like she had been part of something real, only to be quietly written out when it became inconvenient. Fans are shocked because for the first time, Jasmine wasn't positioning herself as misunderstood but as genuinely hurt. She questioned whether she had ever truly belonged in that space at all. Rumors started circulating again when Jasmine unfollowed Rasheeda's mom. The internet jumped to conclusions instantly. Fans speculated about secret arguments, hidden betrayals, a possible fallout behind the scenes. In reality, the unfollow was quiet, intentional, and sad. Jasmine needed a clean break to protect herself from constantly reliving a chapter that no longer had a place for her. Rasheeda noticed and felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. She didn't want Jasmine suffering, but she also needed distance to breathe. She admitted to herself that two things could be true at once. Jasmine could have helped her mom, and still crossed emotional boundaries. Acknowledging that complexity was exhausting but necessary. The real test came months later, when Rasheeda's mom faced a personal crisis unrelated to either of them. Her health took a sudden turn, nothing life-threatening, but enough to scare everyone. Instinctively, she reached for Rasheeda first. That choice mattered more than any speech ever could. Rasheeda showed up without hesitation, staying by her side, handling things quietly, without posting, without performing. Fans are shocked because when word eventually got out, Jasmine was nowhere to be seen. No cryptic posts, no statements, just silence. Some fans respected it, others criticized it, but Rasheeda noticed, and for the first time, felt fully secure in her role again. Not because Jasmine was gone, but because her mom chose her without needing to prove it. During recovery, Rasheeda's mom reflected deeply. She admitted she had confused being seen with being needed. Jasmine had needed her in a way that felt validating. Rasheeda had loved her in a way that felt familiar. She realized she had chased the wrong feeling to fill the wrong wound. That realization was painful but grounding. Rasheeda listened without judgment. She didn't throw the past in her mom's face. She didn't demand apologies for every moment. She understood now that her mom's bond with Jasmine wasn't about replacing her, but about rediscovering herself. That understanding didn't erase the hurt, but it softened it enough to allow forgiveness to breathe. The family was left divided less and less as time passed. Not because everyone suddenly agreed, but because the urgency faded. Arguments lost their fuel when people stopped performing for an audience. Even extended relatives who once chose sides began to step back, letting the situation belong only to those directly involved. Jasmine eventually resurfaced in her own way. She gave a quiet interview, careful with her words. She said she didn't regret the bond, but she acknowledged it may have grown in a space that wasn't hers to occupy. Fans are shocked because it was the closest thing to accountability anyone had heard from her. She didn't mention Rasheeda by name, but the message was clear. Rasheeda watched that interview alone. She didn't feel anger. She didn't feel victory. She felt closure. Not the dramatic kind, but the quiet acceptance that everyone had done the best they could with the emotional tools they had at the time. Still, scars remained. Certain topics stayed sensitive. Certain memories stayed sharp. But Rasheeda and her mom learned how to navigate them without detonating everything around them. They learned to pause. To ask instead of assume. To speak before resentment built a voice of its own. Fans are shocked because the story never gave them the ending they expected. No villain fully exposed, no hero crowned, just flawed people trying to repair something that mattered. The question "did Rasheeda even matter?" slowly lost its power, because the answer revealed itself through action, not words. And in the end, the bond that caused so much chaos didn't disappear. It transformed. It became a lesson instead of a threat. A reminder that connection without boundaries can wound just as deeply as neglect. The family was left divided once, but slowly, intentionally, they chose not to stay that way. Even now, years later, the story still sparks debate. Fans still argue about who was right, who was wrong, who should have done more. But for Rasheeda, the noise faded. What remained was a clearer understanding of love, loyalty, and the cost of silence. And that understanding changed everything, not loudly, not publicly, but in the way she showed up, the way her mom reached back, and the way the past finally loosened its grip enough for both of them to move forward, imperfectly, but together. Time passed, but the story never fully left the public eye. Even when things were quiet, fans kept revisiting old clips, old posts, old moments that now felt loaded with meaning. A smile that once looked harmless was now dissected. A pause in conversation was treated like evidence. Fans are shocked by how deeply invested they remained, as if the unresolved emotions had become collective property. Rasheeda learned to live with that scrutiny. She stopped explaining herself. She stopped correcting narratives. Instead, she focused on consistency. Showing up for her mom. Protecting her peace. Choosing silence where she once would have defended herself. That restraint didn't come easily. Some days she wanted to scream her truth. Other days she felt proud of how far she'd come. Her mom, too, was changing in ways that felt quieter but just as significant. She stopped seeking validation through proximity. She stopped oversharing. She started asking herself hard questions before forming new bonds. She admitted to Rasheeda that she had confused intensity with intimacy. That confession stayed between them, private and sacred. The family was left divided less by opinion and more by distance from the truth they were slowly building together. Jasmine watched all of this from afar. She wasn't angry anymore, but she wasn't indifferent either. She told friends she felt like a chapter that helped someone else grow, even if it cost her comfort. Fans are shocked because that perspective humanized her in a way nothing else had. She wasn't the villain or the victim. She was collateral in an emotional war she didn't fully understand until it was over. There were moments when paths almost crossed again. Shared events, overlapping circles, mutual acquaintances. Each time, there was hesitation. Would this reopen everything? Would it undo the progress? Most of the time, distance won. Not out of fear, but out of respect for what had finally stabilized. Rasheeda sometimes wondered what would have happened if Jasmine had never entered the picture. Would the cracks have stayed hidden? Would her mom have continued to shrink herself quietly? That thought unsettled her. She realized that while the pain was real, so was the awakening. Pretending otherwise felt dishonest. Emotions ran high again when an old clip resurfaced online. A moment where Rasheeda's mom praised Jasmine openly, filmed long before the fallout. Fans used it as proof, as fuel, as justification for old arguments. Rasheeda watched it once, then turned it off. She didn't feel the same sting. That was how she knew she'd changed. Her mom apologized again, unprompted, after seeing the clip trend. Not because Rasheeda asked, but because she understood the weight of public memory. Rasheeda accepted it without reopening the wound. The family was left divided online, but offline, something steadier had taken root. Jasmine eventually moved on in visible ways. New projects, new circles, new energy. Fans are shocked because she stopped referencing the past altogether. No more quotes, no more subtext, just forward motion. That silence spoke volumes. Rasheeda respected it. She didn't feel the need to reclaim space or assert dominance. She understood now that peace wasn't about winning narratives. It was about not needing them at all. Her mom once said something that stayed with Rasheeda forever. She said, "I had to lose my footing to realize where I stood." That sentence reframed everything. It wasn't about choosing one person over another. It was about rediscovering herself without disappearing into someone else's shadow. The family was left divided once because no one knew how to say what they needed before resentment did it for them. Now, they were learning to speak sooner. Softer, clearer, not perfectly, but intentionally. Fans are shocked because the most dramatic part of the story turned out to be its aftermath. Not the arguments, not the accusations, but the slow, uncomfortable accountability that followed. The kind that doesn't trend easily. The kind that doesn't fit into clips. Even now, people still ask the question, did Rasheeda even matter? But those closest to the truth no longer answer it out loud. Because the answer lives in choices. In who shows up when cameras are gone. In who stays when validation isn't immediate. And while the bond that started it all will always be part of their story, it no longer defines it. It became a mirror, one that forced everyone involved to confront their needs, their boundaries, and their blind spots. The family was left divided, yes. But they were also left wiser. More cautious, more honest, and sometimes that's the only real resolution life offers. Not a perfect ending, but a clearer beginning, shaped by everything that came before, and guided by the understanding that love, when left unspoken, can fracture, but when faced directly, can still find its way back. Even after everything settled, there were moments when the past crept back in quietly, uninvited. Rasheeda would hear a certain tone in her mom's voice and feel her chest tighten before she could stop it. Her mom would notice Rasheeda pulling away during emotional conversations and wonder if the trust they rebuilt was thinner than it looked. Emotions ran high in those moments, not because of fresh drama, but because of old scars reacting on instinct. What changed was how they handled it. Instead of exploding or shutting down, they paused. They named the discomfort. Rasheeda learned to say, "That reminded me of before," instead of swallowing it. Her mom learned to respond without defensiveness. That alone felt revolutionary. The family was left divided less by conflict and more by growth happening unevenly. Fans, of course, never fully let it go. Every interaction was analyzed. A photo of Rasheeda and her mom sparked praise one week and skepticism the next. Some fans insisted the damage was irreversible. Others romanticized the healing. Rasheeda stopped reading comments altogether. She realized the audience didn't need to understand her piece for it to be real. There was one moment, though, that reignited public curiosity. A mutual friend posted a group photo from a private gathering, and in the corner of the frame, barely visible, was Jasmine. Not next to Rasheeda's mom. Not interacting. Just present. Fans are shocked because the image alone reopened old debates. Was this proof the bond never truly ended? Or simply evidence that life is rarely as clean as narratives demand? Behind the scenes, the truth was simpler and more complicated at the same time. Jasmine had been invited by someone else. She and Rasheeda's mom exchanged a brief, polite greeting. Nothing more, no long conversations, no emotional weight, just acknowledgement. Rasheeda noticed, felt a flicker of tension, and then felt it pass. That was new. That was growth. Later that night, Rasheeda talked to her mom about it openly. No accusations, no fear, just honesty. Her mom reassured her without over-explaining. Jasmine didn't come up again. The family was left divided online, but offline, the moment barely registered. Jasmine, for her part, reflected deeply on that encounter. She realized she no longer wanted to be tethered to that chapter of her life. She respected what the bond had been, but she didn't want to live inside it forever. Fans are shocked because true closure didn't come with a statement or an apology. It came with detachment. Rasheeda reached a point where she could finally separate pain from meaning. She no longer viewed the bond as proof she didn't matter. She saw it as evidence that her mom had unmet needs she didn't know how to voice. That reframing didn't excuse the hurt, but it freed her from carrying it as a personal failure. Her mom, too, changed how she showed love. She became more expressive, less assumptive. She stopped expecting people to read her silence as strength. She started speaking up before resentment could grow teeth. She told Rasheeda she wished she had done that sooner. Rasheeda agreed, without bitterness. The family was left divided once because silence filled the gaps where communication should have been. Now, those gaps were smaller. Not gone, but manageable. Progress didn't mean perfection. It meant fewer emotional landmines. Fans are shocked because the story never circled back to chaos the way they expected. There was no dramatic relapse. No sudden betrayal. Just life continuing, shaped by lessons learned the hard way. That disappointed some people. Drama is easier to consume than quiet accountability. Rasheeda became more protective of her inner circle. She learned that access doesn't equal entitlement, even within family. Her mom respected that boundary, even when it stung. Jasmine, watching from a distance, learned the same lesson in her own way. Over time, the question "did Rasheeda even matter?" stopped being asked as often. It lost urgency. New stories took over. New controversies distracted the crowd. But for those involved, the impact lingered. Not as pain, but as awareness. Rasheeda once said privately that the hardest part wasn't the bond itself. It was realizing how easily people misunderstand love when it isn't spoken clearly. That realization changed how she approached every relationship after. She became more vocal about her needs, less afraid of discomfort. Her mom echoed that sentiment later, saying she had learned that being selfless doesn't mean being silent. The family was left divided once because everyone thought endurance was enough. Now they knew better. Jasmine moved forward fully. She stopped being referenced in the same breath as Rasheeda's family. Her name stood on its own again. Fans are shocked because the separation didn't diminish her. It clarified her. Years later, when asked indirectly about that period, Rasheeda simply said it was a painful chapter that taught her who she was and what she deserved. She didn't assign blame. She didn't relive details. She spoke from a place of distance. And that distance was the real resolution. Not forgetting, not rewriting, just no longer living inside the wound. The family was left divided once, but they didn't stay there. They learned that loyalty without communication can fracture, that validation sought in the wrong place can distort priorities, and that healing rarely looks the way spectators want it to. In the end, the bond that shocked fans became a turning point instead of a definition. It forced conversations that should have happened long before. It exposed vulnerabilities that needed light. And while it cost everyone something, it also gave them clarity. Rasheeda mattered, not because she demanded it, not because the public decided it, but because the people who counted learned, finally, how to show it in ways that lasted. Even now, long after the loudest arguments faded, there were nights when Rasheeda lay awake replaying everything in her head. Not with rage, but with curiosity. She wondered how close she came to losing something permanent without realizing it. She wondered how easily love can be misunderstood when people assume it doesn't need maintenance. Those thoughts didn't hurt the way they used to, but they still carried weight. Her mom had her own sleepless nights. She questioned her choices, not in regret but in reflection. She admitted to herself that she had been hungry for recognition in ways she didn't know how to ask for. She realized that Jasmine hadn't created that hunger, she had only responded to it. That truth was uncomfortable, but it was also freeing. It meant the responsibility didn't belong to one person alone. The family was left divided for a long time in how they talked about that period. Some avoided it completely, others brought it up too often, like picking at a scab. Eventually, they learned when to speak and when to let silence do its work. Not every lesson needs to be repeated to be remembered. Rasheeda noticed that her relationship with her mom started to feel different in subtle ways. More equal, less performative. She stopped feeling like the parent in the room. Her mom stopped expecting mind reading. They began checking in instead of assuming. That shift didn't make headlines, but it changed everything. Fans, of course, continued to speculate. A random like, a shared event, a moment caught on camera. Each time, theories exploded. Rasheeda learned not to internalize it. She understood now that the public needed drama, but her life needed peace. Those two things were no longer compatible. Jasmine's name still came up occasionally, usually from outsiders who wanted a reaction. Rasheeda refused to give one. She wasn't bitter. She wasn't nostalgic. She was neutral. That neutrality took more strength than anger ever did. It meant she had processed the pain instead of preserving it. Jasmine, too, reached a place of clarity. She admitted to herself that being emotionally essential to someone can feel intoxicating, especially when you felt overlooked before. She recognized that she had crossed internal boundaries even if no one told her to stop. That awareness didn't shame her. It matured her. There was one private moment that sealed everything for Rasheeda. During a quiet conversation, her mom said, "I don't want anyone to ever come between us again, including myself." That sentence mattered. It acknowledged responsibility without defensiveness. Rasheeda felt something settle in her chest that day. The family was left divided once because no one knew how to say what they needed without fear of conflict. Now, conflict wasn't the enemy. Silence was. That lesson carried into every relationship Rasheeda had afterward. She stopped delaying hard conversations. She stopped assuming love would survive neglect. Fans are shocked when they look back and realize how much of the drama was fueled by projection. Everyone saw themselves in the story. Daughters who felt overlooked, mothers who felt unappreciated, outsiders who felt blamed. That relatability kept the story alive long after the players had moved on. Rasheeda eventually accepted that the bond between her mom and Jasmine wasn't something to erase or rewrite. It was part of their history. Pretending otherwise would only give it more power. Instead, she placed it where it belonged. In the past, acknowledged but not centered. Her mom expressed gratitude for that grace. She knew forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing not to punish forever. That choice deepened their bond in a way conflict never could. The family was left divided in memory but united in intention. They wanted better communication, clearer boundaries, less assumption. Those goals didn't require perfection. They required effort. Fans gradually shifted their attention elsewhere, but a core group never stopped discussing it. They treated the story like a case study, dissecting motives and assigning blame. Rasheeda didn't mind. She knew people tell stories to understand themselves, not just others. Jasmine rarely spoke about that time anymore. When she did, it was with distance and humility. She acknowledged that being welcomed into someone's emotional life carries responsibility, not entitlement. Fans are shocked because that perspective didn't fit the original narrative they clung to. Rasheeda's mom once said she learned that validation borrowed from the wrong place always comes with interest. That line stuck. She meant it. She lived it. She became more careful about where she sought comfort and why. The family was left divided once because they didn't understand that love isn't proven by endurance alone. It's proven by adjustment, by listening, by choosing connection even when it's uncomfortable. Years later, Rasheeda could look back without flinching. She didn't rewrite history to make herself look stronger. She acknowledged the hurt honestly. But she also acknowledged the growth. Both existed. Both mattered. The question that once haunted everyone slowly lost its charge. Did Rasheeda even matter? The answer stopped being debated because it was demonstrated consistently. Through presence, through choice, through repair. And in the end, that was the real story. Not the bond that shocked fans, but the resilience that followed it. Not the division, but the decision to heal without spectacle. The family was left divided once, but they didn't stay broken. They stayed human, flawed, learning, and that, more than any dramatic twist, was what made the story linger long after the noise faded. Even after all the reflection, the echoes of that season never fully disappeared. They just softened. Sometimes they returned as lessons, sometimes as quiet reminders of what happens when emotions go unnamed for too long. Rasheeda found herself more observant, more intentional, noticing shifts in energy before they hardened into resentment. She promised herself she would never again let confusion speak louder than clarity. Her mom noticed the change too. She saw how Rasheeda no longer avoided difficult conversations, how she asked questions instead of assuming answers. It made her proud and uneasy at the same time. Proud because her daughter had grown into emotional strength. Uneasy because she recognized how much of that growth came from pain she helped create. Emotions ran high privately, even when everything looked calm on the surface. There were moments when old habits tried to resurface. A defensive tone, a delayed response, a misunderstanding that could have easily spiraled. But now, there was interruption. Someone would pause and say, "This feels familiar, let's slow down." That alone prevented explosions that once felt inevitable. The family was left divided less often because awareness stepped in where impulse used to rule. Rasheeda also began noticing how the situation changed the way people treated her. Some were gentler, as if she were fragile. Others were bolder, projecting their own unresolved family issues onto her story. Fans are shocked by how much emotional labor public figures are expected to carry without complaint. Rasheeda learned to set boundaries even there, refusing to become a sounding board for everyone else's trauma. Jasmine's role in the narrative continued to fade, but not entirely. She existed now as context rather than catalyst. People still referenced her name when discussing the shift, but with less intensity. Jasmine herself rarely acknowledged it. She focused on her own growth, her own relationships, choosing not to repeat patterns that once felt validating but ultimately draining. There was one conversation Rasheeda had with a close friend that stayed with her. The friend said, "Sometimes people enter our lives to expose cracks, not to fill them." That line made sense of everything. Jasmine hadn't broken the bond between Rasheeda and her mom. She revealed where it was already vulnerable. That realization didn't excuse the pain, but it gave it meaning. Her mom reached a similar understanding. She stopped framing that period as a mistake and started seeing it as a wake-up call. She acknowledged that she had sought emotional safety outside instead of addressing the discomfort within her own family. Owning that truth changed how she moved forward. She no longer avoided discomfort. She leaned into it before it grew sharp edges. The family was left divided once because avoidance felt easier than honesty. Now, honesty was the default, even when it was awkward. That shift wasn't dramatic, but it was powerful. It turned potential conflicts into conversations instead of confrontations. Fans are shocked because the story never circled back to chaos. No shocking reunion, no secret alliances, no explosive fallout, just steady, unglamorous repair. That kind of ending doesn't satisfy everyone, but it reflects reality more than any twist ever could. Rasheeda became more reflective about her own expectations. She realized she had unconsciously placed her mom on a pedestal, assuming unconditional understanding without always offering the same in return. That awareness didn't diminish her pain, but it balanced it. She stopped seeing herself only as the wounded party and started seeing the dynamic as shared responsibility. Her mom expressed gratitude for that grace. She knew forgiveness wasn't owed. It was chosen. That choice deepened their bond in a way perfection never could. They were no longer trying to be the ideal mother and daughter. They were trying to be honest ones. The family was left divided in memory, but united in practice. Gatherings felt lighter. Conversations felt freer, not because the past was erased, but because it no longer dominated the room. Laughter returned without tension lurking beneath it. Rasheeda noticed something else too. She stopped questioning her worth in moments of distance. She no longer interpreted space as rejection. She understood now that closeness doesn't require constant proximity. That lesson alone was transformative. Jasmine's journey continued quietly. She built relationships with clearer boundaries, choosing mutuality over intensity. She admitted to herself that being needed can feel like love, but it isn't the same as being chosen freely. That distinction changed everything for her moving forward. Fans are shocked when they realize how much the story evolved without spectacle. The real drama happened internally. The real resolution happened off camera. That didn't make it less significant. It made it more real. Rasheeda's mom once said she learned that motherhood doesn't end at sacrifice. It includes self-awareness. That statement reflected growth that couldn't be faked. Rasheeda felt it in how her mom showed up, not just in what she said. The family was left divided once because everyone was speaking from hurt instead of need. Now, needs were named before hurt had a chance to build armor. That shift changed everything. Even years later, the story still surfaces in conversations, but with less judgment and more curiosity. People ask what they learned instead of who was wrong. That change in framing mirrors the growth of those involved. Rasheeda doesn't romanticize the pain anymore. She acknowledges it without glorifying it. She understands that growth doesn't justify harm, but it can emerge from it. That nuance matters. Her mom agrees. She says she wishes the lesson had come without the fracture, but she doesn't deny what it taught her. She became more present, more vocal, more grounded. That evolution strengthened every relationship in her life. The family was left divided once, but they didn't stay stuck in that chapter. They allowed themselves to move forward without demanding perfect closure. They accepted that some questions don't need final answers to lose their power. Fans are shocked because the story didn't end with a winner. It ended with understanding. And while that may not trend the way chaos does, it lasts longer. Rasheeda now sees that the question that once haunted everyone was never really about her worth. It was about visibility, about unmet needs, about silence masquerading as strength. Once those things were addressed, the question dissolved on its own. And in that quiet resolution, the family found something more valuable than validation. They found honesty. They found boundaries. They found a way forward that didn't require erasing the past, only learning from it. The bond that once threatened to tear them apart became a lesson instead of a legacy. And that lesson, hard-earned and deeply personal, reshaped how they loved each other from that point on, not loudly, not perfectly, but intentionally, and that made all the difference. And now the question is on you. After everything you've just heard, after every tear, every silence, every moment that changed this family forever, where do you stand? Do you think Rasheeda's mom crossed a line that should never have been crossed, or do you believe she was finally choosing herself after years of being unseen? Fans are shocked because there is no easy answer, and that's exactly why this story refuses to fade. Emotions ran high throughout every chapter of this drama, and even now, the family is still navigating the aftermath. Some wounds healed, some scars remained, and some questions may never get a clear answer. Did Jasmine Bleu overstep, or was she simply in the wrong place at the wrong time? Did Rasheeda lose her footing, or did she gain clarity that changed her forever? The family was left divided, but maybe division was the only path to truth. Now it's your turn to weigh in. If you were in Rasheeda's position, would you have reacted the same way, or would you have handled it differently? If you were her mom, would you have chosen connection even if it hurt your child, or would you have stayed silent and sacrificed your own needs? This story hits deep because it forces all of us to look at our own families, our own boundaries, and the cost of unspoken emotions. Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation is far from over. Let us know whose side you're on, or if you think there are no sides at all. If this story made you feel something, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next shocking twist. Stay right here, because the drama doesn't stop when the cameras turn off, and neither do the questions.